Hello, my name is Antoine Williams, the E-Nation YouTube channel. Today I'm giving my reaction on the recent news about Dave Ramsey. Says Christian financial advisor Dave Ramsey sued for $150 million over timeshare exit company endorsement. There's no video this time. This doesn't need a video. It's interesting enough without one. And before I have a little notepad here of the order I'm going to go over this. I'm not going to jump right to the article because when it comes to Dave Ramsey, if you don't know who Dave Ramsey is, he does financial advice. He gives like a lot of like opinions on like credit cards, debt, building wealth, stuff like that, lifestyle advice, stuff like that. Personally, I like his content. I like his content a lot. But before we jump to that, I really skipped one of my own steps. But my first step is I have to get past the 1,000-pound gorilla in the room. Is my opinion on religion. Because his content is very like Christian focused. Like he's Christian. His audience seems like his desired audience. Anyone can listen, but his desired audience is Christian. And I was raised Christian, but I am no longer Christian. I don't believe in that stuff. Main reason being, I don't really see, basically, it just doesn't make sense to me. I ask questions, the answers aren't, they aren't good enough. Basically, I just don't think it makes any sense personally. So I've moved away from that. But my opinion on Dave Ramsey in general, and his content in general, which I kind of jumped forward on by accident, but basically I agree with a lot of his points. When I found his content back in 2020, I was inspired to actually work hard and pay off that personal debt that I had, and I actually did it, and it worked out. And ever since then, I've always tried to avoid that because of a lot of the points he makes. I believe that a lot of points that are made with the justification of religion, or with the thought process behind a religious book or anything, these concepts make sense without it. You don't. In my opinion, some of these things don't need the justification of a higher power or anything. They just make sense. If there was no higher power involved or anything, it would make sense. I believe it makes sense not to owe with a percent interest on it. It sucks, and it sucks to have to pay that back every month, and then a part of your payment is just it doesn't even go back to what you owe. It's just money that the person made off of you. I personally don't want to live like that. Right now, I'm happy to say I don't have any debt. I own, I rent, and I own my car, own my motorcycle. My only bill is my rent every month. But yeah, I like the concept of building wealth, not living paycheck to paycheck, not having that stress. For a long time, I had that stress of worrying about am I gonna be able to afford all these bills, going negative on a credit card, stuff like that. And it wasn't until I found his content that I really started thinking okay, what am I doing wrong? How can I fix this? Stuff like that. And a lot of his advice was very useful. So personally, I like his advice. It's just, like I said, I'm not Christian, so all the Christian stuff he says, I just ignore it. And I'm saying as somebody who's surrounded on all sides by Christians. Everybody around me believes in that stuff. And I've had plenty of conversations with people about it. And it was a long process for me to get to the point where I'm yeah, no, I'm not into that stuff anymore. I don't believe in it. I don't go to church. I don't do anything like that. And a big thing that I think is an issue that will tie into this issue is that not all, but some people who believe in religion stuff and Christianity, stuff like that, is they make, basically, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, don't get all mad, but in my opinion, people make decisions based on bad information. They make decisions based on or they decide to believe stuff with bad evidence. Basically, they're okay, maybe this doesn't make sense, but I'll just believe it anyways. Because when I get in a conversation with people, I'm well, what about this? What about that? How does this make sense? How does that make sense? How do you? I'm logically, I don't understand this and this, and then they just say oh, you just have to have faith, or you just have to believe it. It's okay, so I could have reasons why I don't believe, why I wouldn't want to believe it, but I just have to ignore that. and do it anyways. Think about all the stuff you could justify that way in life, which goes into this article and what's happened, because these people have bought a timeshare. In 2023, why would you buy a timeshare? Isn't it pretty much there's three things, I don't know, I'd say there's four things off the top of my head I can think of that you should pretty much intuitively. There's a lot of things like this, and I'm just going to list them off. Things that I think people should intuitively know aren't going to go well. It's like a timeshare, Ponzi schemes where it's like just people underneath you, people above you, stuff like that. Crypto at this point, like, in general, like we've seen enough cryptos, like, they're like, oh, this is the next best thing, and then like boom, it crashes. So it's like a huge, like, game of Russian roulette trying to like actually make money on that. And then I would say, like, thinking that you're gonna like play, like go to the casino and make a lot of money. Like, these are things people at this point should intuitively know that it might go well, but we have enough evidence that it doesn't go well. And I think it's this same thought process that would make people think that, like, people make a lot of bad decisions where people look at them and say, why would you do this? Doesn't make sense. Oh, well, you just don't understand. Like, I just believe this. And it's kind of the same as like being like, oh, well, I just have faith. It kind of goes back to like the religion thing, where it's like, well, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't, like, all the facts and information might argue against it. Well, I'm just going to believe it anyways. What could go wrong? And then you end up in these type of situations. So now I'm going to jump into let's see, I think I've gone through all my steps. Yep, I've gone through my opinion on Dave Ramsey in general, my opinion on religion, my opinion on timeshares. Now my reaction to the article. Christian financial advisor Dave Ramsey sued for $150 million over timeshare exit company endorsement. This is an article I found on it. After 40 years running their family-owned pharmacy in Washington, these two people made plans to travel the world. They bought points from a timeshare company to do so, which they later realized was a mistake. What are we talking? So, after 40 years of running their family-owned pharmacy in Washington, so you've been living in the United States for 40 years, which is older than I've been alive. You were smart enough to run a pharmacy, make more money than I can even imagine, like, making, at this point in my life. But you don't know that buying points from a timeshare company is a bad idea. I know that, and I'm from a little city in New York State, and I've never had that type of money. I've never had that type of success. Then, see, this whole thing is just ridiculous. It says, she's a frequent listener of Christian financial advisor Dave Ramsey's radio show. Later heard him talk about how timeshares were a rip-off, but Ramsey said there was a way out of their timeshare contracts. Just one way out, the timeshare exit team, which he said would give them a full refund if it couldn't get them out of their financial obligations. So now they do it. It says they contacted the Bellevue, Washington-based company off Ramsey's endorsement and were told it cost them $40,000 for their services. They paid it. Okay, did you actually read what their services are? Did you check their reviews? I remember this one time recently, I was going to use this company. I'm not going to go into it, it's kind of personal, but basically I was going to use this company to pay for something. And it seemed too good to be true. I was like, it was an online company, so I checked the reviews. And it was actually, like, I read a few reviews. I checked them on Better Business Bureau. Everyone in there was saying it was fine. I didn't just, like, go off of, some person that it's like the same thing. It's like people growing up or whatever told you about religion, then you just believed them because you trusted them, you looked up to them. Now you got Dave Ramsey over here telling you something. Oh, okay, it must be true. Like you just trusting, you're just being too trusting. Like, you should have looked into this place. You could have checked the reviews, and then you might have seen people saying like, "Oh, they couldn't help me. They couldn't help me for this and that." Like, you would see review. I'm sure you weren't the first people that had this problem. You could have checked the reviews before you gave these people more like a year's salary, 40,000, like the average like basic person's in America's year salary of $40,000. Jesus, Jesus Christ, that's funny. But they never got out of their timeshare contract, and they never got their refund. Ramsey, meanwhile, received millions of dollars from timeshare exit team for endorsing the company on his radio show. I like how they paint him out in this article like he's the bad guy. Like, okay. um, as well as a share of the fees the company received from the customers he referred, according to a recent filed lawsuit first reported on by Religion News Service. The Morris, whatever their names are, the family, along with 15 others, are suing Dave Ramsey and his company, asking for $150 million over accusations of negligent representation, unjust enrichment, and violations of consumer protection laws. The lawsuit was filed in late April, and U.S. District Court for the Western District of Washington, where the timeshare exit team was located. This is like the same. It's starting to seem like all my videos. Maybe the same thing triggers me over and over again. It's like, when do people like hold themselves to the fire? They want to hold Ramsey to the fire for telling them to go with the exit team. Why don't you hold yourself to the fire for buying into a timeshare and then buying into a timeshare exit team? This reminds me, there was another company, which I'm not going to say because I don't want these people to, but basically, I went into a sales thing. I was looking for a job, and I went to the sales, I thought I was applying for a job, but it turned out I was going into a sales pitch. But they wanted to hire me on, and I would sell their product, and then I would make money off that. But I had to get licensed, so they wanted me to pay for that. So I was this is like when I first got out of college. I was like, 22, 23, 24. So I went ahead. No, I didn't do it. Unlike this story, you're not going to see the part where I say, oh, I went and did it. No. I read up on the company. The company sounded like a very legitimate company, which they are a very legitimate company. They sell a very legitimate service. But it was definitely a finesse. I definitely wasn't going to, it just didn't make sense, and it was a ripoff. So I went ahead and I looked at reviews for it, and I looked at what people were saying. And then there was the particular thing on YouTube I watched. I watched a video of like someone who had done it for them, and he basically said it wasn't a scam, and he had a product to sell. But basically he was saying it wasn't a scam. You should believe them, and if you believe that, I have a bridge to sell you. That's pretty much what he was saying, and I knew right then and there that these type of situations are looking for a certain type of person who's going to do something without good reason to do it, who's going to think, who's going to feel instead of think, and just going to do it. And I'd say that's what happened in this situation with from the information I have, and in my opinion, that's what I think happened here, is that these people are making bad decisions with bad information, and they're not putting enough thought into it. They're just doing stuff, and they feel it's a good idea. So if anybody says anything to them like, oh, that doesn't really make sense, I don't understand this and that, they'll get all mad and argue with you and be like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. It's like, you don't know what you're talking about. Look at the boat you're in. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, my opinion to the lawsuit, my last step, I have to say, I would say my opinion is, I don't particularly know. I don't know how it's going to go. It seems like they're making some good points. Like, who knows what will happen? Maybe it'll end up being less. Maybe it'll end up being that amount, or maybe it'll get thrown out altogether. I have no idea. Court stuff is very complicated, but I would definitely say Dave Ramsey probably should have done. Do I think that this was like malicious? Personally, do I think this was malicious on Dave Ramsey's part? No, I think it was. I think if he knew that this is how it would go, then he wouldn't even have gone down this road. He probably didn't realize it was probably just a mistake. That's what I think, my personal opinion. But we'll definitely see how it goes. Thank you guys if you made this far in the video. Thank you for watching. Feel free to leave any comments you want. Any feedback is appreciated. And I'll see you guys tomorrow in the next video.